think, another kind of observation I would make is that there's a lot of really good capability in the service management space in AI, but often it's a solution looking for a problem. And someone else once said to me, all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. and that is also a bit of cynicism, I guess, towards some of this stuff. Someone in the room earlier on, I'm not sure if she's here now because I didn't see her face, was a linguist, and she said she could spot AI-produced content.
Cecilia.
So one of the other things I did in preparation for this presentation, other than talk to some vendors and do some Googling and talk to some clients, so I asked ChatGPT what it thought as well. So as I go through the slides, I'm going to differentiate what ChatGPT thought of the points I'm raising versus my actual practical experience and the reality of that, because you'd be surprised the similarity between what ChatGPT said and what the suppliers say versus what my customers say and what I actually think of some of these things as well. So there's some interesting sort of dichotomy at play here, right? Moon on a spoon, some might say, around some of these AI terminologies. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the obligatory slide with the code on it for you to ask any other questions. There's an opportunity at the end of this for you to click another QR code to connect with me, and I can then email you slides or ask any other questions if you wanted to. So there's a lot of information on some of these slides. So this was what ChatGPT said when I said what AI functionality is available in ITSM tools. And I thought this was reasonably good. AI functionality is constantly evolving. There are several common AI functionalities and features which are often integrated into tools, but it wasn't specific about what they were. And indeed, service management toolset providers are often not particularly specific about AI. You can do it now if you've got mobile signal. You can Google Ivanti AI, ServiceNow AI, For Me AI, and you'll get a fairly generic landing page on their website that says, hey, we do AI, but not really much about the capability itself and exactly what it's going to do. So I said, well, what are the features that it offers? And it came up with these, but I had to then go to the vendors' websites and dig a bit more deeply. And I spoke with For Me, and I spoke with ServiceNow, and I spoke with Ivanti. I said, what are the actual products? What is it that you actually do then in your tool set? Of course, ServiceNow said, well, everything. We do all the things for the price. Absolutely. That is such a good point. And it was one of the key themes of my presentation today as well, because just working with a client, they're a global organization. Their claim to fame is they own 60% of the world's sea containers, and something like 45% of the world's pallets. And I said, well, 40% of the world's pallets are on the side of the road on the A127 where I drive back home to Essex. So it can't be true. But anyway, they said that they had some AI capabilities from ServiceNow in their tool set. We did an assessment of their organisation, and it wasn't particularly complimentary. But the additional fee they were paying for the AI functionality was £300,000 a year. And we thought, what does that actually give you? What's the business case? And they said, well, A, we didn't know we were paying that much more. B, we had never made a business case for it. And C, what's the functionality do? Because no one ever explained it to us. The toolset owner just kind of signed it off, right? Yeah. So anyway, let's get back to some real functionality that's available in AI tools, and we'll come up together with some of the other challenges that organizations find when they're trying to implement these. So you've seen, chatbots and virtual agents. That is the primary capability that the tool sets provide. That is your front door into service management. Plug into your ServiceNow portal. How can I help you today? Oh, I have this issue. And I was luckily enough to be in some of the other presentations today where we talked about AI coming up with the best guess, coming up with the best answer, but not necessarily the correct answer. And I see that that's potentially an issue with some of these things, because initially it's always going to tell you to turn it off and on again, isn't it? And then it's going to look for some form of knowledge in order to give you an answer which will probably be right. The first thing that I would also say here then is the chatbot. I'm going to say this may be controversial, but a chatbot cannot be successful unless you have a mature set of knowledge articles in the background. When I went to my client and I assessed recently, they were able to tick that box because they had 1,500 knowledge articles. First one was authored in 2004 and had never been reviewed. They had 30 knowledge articles that were all broadly about the same issue. They'd also got a knowledge article, some knowledge data that they'd brought in from a third party on Word and Excel and PowerPoint, etc. Never reviewed, never renewed that license. So that knowledge data was 5 years old. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. has moved on a little bit since then. So my point is, you can do that one. That is the front door on most of the service providers' websites, but you can't do it unless the data that underpins it in the first place is accurate. So I'll give that one a kind of, we could score them, couldn't we? Let's do it. That's like a 7 out of 10, right, in terms of implementability and usefulness. Then there's predictive analytics to forecast potential issues based on historical data and patterns. I'm really getting into my stride now. So this is also dependent upon another set of data. So when you log an incident in your organizations, you will all have capability to categorize the incident somehow. So you might even have a hierarchical model that says it's hardware, software, application, it's this, that, and this is what we did with it. You may also have some closing data as well to say, well, this is how it was initially diagnosed. This is what we actually thought it was at the end of it. Without that data, and without a good sample source for that data over a long period of time, that is not possible. Yeah, because the data that it's looking at from the previous incidents that have occurred before, if they haven't been categorized effectively, and also using the service model that Chris did an excellent presentation earlier this morning on the service catalog, that stuff's got to be there so that we're talking about the right services, the right applications with the right impact classification, the right priority, etc., assigned to the right team and resolved in the right way, and with the right closing data in order for it to be successful. And guess what? You've got to have a reasonable chunk of that. So you can't just fix it today and say, we're going to solve all of those issues and then implement that and it will all be all right, because all of your previous data is flawed in some way and will not allow that to be effective. So those are kind of the top two on the service management toolset suppliers selling list, right? And I think we have to accept that there are some predecessors, some precursors that are necessary in order for those to be successful. Automated ticket routing falls into the same camp as the previous one. You need to be able to know who all of your resolver groups are and what it is they do. And you have to have some reliable past data that demonstrates that. If your organization has been under some form of organizational change, which most will have done recently with hybrid working, amalgamation of teams, maybe some offshoring happening, or even some onshoring as well, which I've seen quite a lot now with move to hybrid, people have a bit more capacity. Then the data that's in there already that those decisions will be based on isn't necessarily accurate. So you have to have a good sample set of data. I used to be a service desk agent many years ago, and I must admit I was measured on the accuracy of ticket routing. And often if I didn't know the answer, I'd send it to the network team in second line because it was nearly always the network team. So if I didn't have anything to go on, I had a pretty good chance that I'd still hit my data. And that human nature to find the easiest path, to cut the corner, to avoid having to go around a long and circuitous route to get to an answer is that we'll all do that, won't we? It's natural, isn't it? And hence, automated ticket routing perhaps isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Sentiment analysis, yes, but how many times have you been on a chatbot and said, typed the immortal words, could I please speak to a human? We've all done it, haven't we? Because there's times when eventually the chatbot, from its previous, it's serving up the wrong answer again and again and again. Eventually, you're going to get cross with it. Oh, I am anyway. I'll get cross with it pretty bloody quickly, if I'm honest. First Direct have an app, and they reckon they have a chatbot, and it's the most useless thing. If you're in America on holiday in Orlando and you leave your wallet in the hire car before you get onto the aeroplane, and you're on the plane talking to the chatbot trying to explain what you've done, let me tell you, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I think it's because you're the first person who's ever done that. Did it hit the required levels of abuse? How stupid were you? What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Check your pockets before you go into the plane.
I think been confused. Yeah. Luckily, my wallet did have an air tag on it, and we managed to find the wallet in the hire car because the hire car driver had a phone with him. And I'm now the proud possessor of my wallet once again. But yeah, sentiment analysis would be good in that respect, and it would tell me how bad all those other AI capabilities were deployed in my organization. Natural language processing, we've already talked about in the earlier presentations. And again, it's only as good as the data that goes into it. And some of us, I take great pride actually in the quality of the grammar and the written word that I managed to put down into a chatbot, but not everyone thinks that way. When I look at what my son, who's 24, puts into a chatbot, he talks to a chatbot like he would to his mates, and heaven help any chatbot trying to understand that. And the messages I get on my WhatsApp from my daughter, who's 20, are indistinguishable. So good luck, natural language processing. Knowledge management content recommendations, yes, back to the earlier comments around the accuracy and completeness of knowledge data. We can use AI to help us identify the gaps, then that's got to be a good thing. But in order for that to be effective, we need to be able to categorize our incidents effectively so that we can say we've had this number of incidents for these types of issue that may have been helped by a knowledge article that actually wasn't there on this occasion, and therefore here's some knowledge article gap analysis for you. So I can see that working. Back to the earlier point around let's have some categorization in place there. Automation and workflow orchestration, yes, but I've tried to implement this. I have real world experience of this. I worked, one of my previous clients, I'm very proud to say, was Sellafield up in the northwest of the UK. You get to a civilized part and you drive an hour towards the sea, and then eventually you're there. And we did this. This was an organization with a very risk-averse attitude, as you might expect if you're walking around with plutonium, etc. You have to be quite risk aware. And the issue that we had here was, whilst in theory we could get the systems to talk to one another, security and data integrity concerns prevented us from doing so. Because we couldn't connect ServiceNow in the cloud to their Azure AD to provision a new account, for example, because it meant passing user-sensitive data, including their locations and their phone numbers and their job titles, over what is essentially an unsecured cloud. So whilst the capability is there, and I don't doubt that works, your risk appetite and security attitude within your organization may prevent that one from making a bit of a reality, becoming a reality. Anomaly detection, I'll refer the jury to the previous point I made with regards incident categorization and so on. You're only going to be able to spot anomalies if you're recording everything consistently with a common data model in the first place, and then you can spot the outliers. No, we started late, but give me a time check as we go along. Capacity planning and resource optimization. I have no association at all with an organization called Capacitas. It's not where capacity managers go to die, but it is a great organization that I've worked with in the past that do this using AI technology. So I can vouch for the fact that that works in isolation. However, when used in the context of your service management tooling, it does rely on you having alerting and discovery so that all your servers are connected and you can see the behavior through your service management toolset. Most organizations won't have that level of maturity to have a fully deployed CNDB. You know, we all know the CNDB is a bit like the Loch Ness Monster. You know, lots of people talk about it. Not very many people have seen one. Right, that's the reality. Sorry, Richard. It's true, right? I'm only saying these things. Changing configuration management then. Right, let's refer the jury back to the earlier point, right? So remember we talked about logging and the importance of logging incidents. The importance of logging changes is also really important, right? So we're going to have risk profiles within our changes. We're going to have to determine in true Dell and Rodney chandelier sketch style, which CI we're going to impact when we make the change. Is it the left chandelier or the right chandelier? Don't worry, Grandad, we've got the blanket, or whatever the terminology was. You get the general gist of that. But the point being, with change in configuration, it will only enable you to track changes to configurations if you have a reliable and accurate logging mechanism and a reliable and accurate CMDB. One, as yet, haven't found an organization that has that. Yeah? But the principle is good. Security incident detection and response, yes. Right, at last I think we have a winner because this is deployable because security gets all the attention and often has the most sophisticated detection tooling that enables us to plug this sort of technology into it to enable it to happen. In the context of IT service management, less likely because you're unlikely to be using your service management tool to log security incident management tickets, unless you've got ServiceNow and the security incident module and so on. You're probably using a separate security incident monitoring tool. Service level agreements, yes, but less and less organizations can have service level agreements these days, mainly because the business, purportedly, according to all the CIOs I speak to, don't care. The business don't care about SLAs, Steve, so we don't have those. We only have SLAs with our suppliers. We don't have any SLAs with the business. Becoming more and more common, and it really grates with me. So if you do have SLAs between you as an IT service provider and your business units in your business, then this can work. Once again, you do need to have, to Chris's excellent presentation earlier on, a mature service catalogue in place. So you understand the services and the hierarchy between them all, preferably supported by a really mature CMDB, so you understand all the infrastructure that sits beneath it as well. So not only you know why it's failing, what's failing, but you know what bit of the infrastructure is causing it as well. So a little bit of a dream there, perhaps. Performance monitoring and reporting, yes, provided you're logging everything in a consistent way, then that can work. And probably one that you'll know more about than I will, but asset management for me falls into the same camp as configuration management. It's only as good as the data model that you have supporting it and the data that's in there. So if you can tick all the boxes and say, we have a very, very mature asset management database and a very mature data model, then yes, that's possible. I've yet to find an organization that's able to tick those boxes convincingly across all the platforms that they manage. Typically, it tends to be really good from a desktop perspective and goes a bit cloudy when you get into a data center. Vendor and license management. You would have heard far more informative conversations and comment on that next door, I'm sure. But again, very few organizations are doing that within their ITSM tooling, unless it's ServiceNow. And if it is ServiceNow software asset management, we all know is not the strongest tool set out there for that. There are better capabilities, there are better tools that do it a lot better. Self-service portals is back to the earlier point around guiding users through troubleshooting steps and the availability of a useful knowledge data supported by a really strong service catalog. And finally, the automated root cause analysis. You can only do problem management effectively if you've categorized your tickets correctly in the first place. Therefore, that's it. So well done, ChatGPT, for giving me all the product names. When I ran all of them past the service providers and then provided the reality check on it, I think overall we're probably going to say maybe 30% of that is possible today. And the rest is dreamland, because you've really got to be mature and you've got to address those gaps. Yes, Richard.
On some of these, but also like yourself, knowing quite a few of these tools quite well,
Yes.
it seems to me we're having this point where in order to write the documentation, you need to start with the word AI.
Yes.
So some of these things are real things, like the change stuff you can put in. If you see a change in the CMDB data, you can log an unlogged change to track that, right? But this isn't AI.
That's a business rule.
This is simply heuristics, yeah? If this, then that.
Precisely. That's that's the
for
extent
20,
of my
50.
programming capability, Richard. So, you've summed it up there. So, I know there's some really clever people in the room that know a lot more about that than me. But you're quite right. This is a business rule. It's heuristic kind of if this, then that type.
Something like with the SLA, can provide alerts when SLAs are at risk of being breached. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what is it, 75%? Fine, 75%. We just calculate what 75% of the time is, and these tools...
Yeah, the idea is it's doing it proactively, I guess. But it will do these things only if you have that strong underpinning set of data there in the first place. So then I said to ChatGPT, stay with me now, this is interesting. What factors will influence the success of doing all of this in the first place then? Because I'm an optimistic soul and I'd love for all of that stuff on the previous page to work. And then I could justify the cost of it to my clients. By the way, I don't get anything back from the toolset providers, right? They tell me about their tooling and how wonderful it is, and I refer customers to them in the hope that I might get some professional services out of it and helping to build a service catalog, for example. So they're all happy to talk to me, and I said, well, they're increasingly incorporating AI and machine learning, but can that vision be realized? And this was my words, or is this just another fool tool? Is AI a bunch of solutions looking for a problem? Yeah. And if so, if we want to remove that and turn it around, then we need to fix all those ills that I was talking about a minute ago, which were ITIL 2, right? Incident categorization and prioritization and so on. That's the stuff we were talking about 10 years ago. But we haven't quite cracked it, have we? So in order to make this dream a reality. So key factors then. That top left-hand one, if I could just have that on one slide, I'll probably finish my presentation now because we've talked about it, right? Data quality and availability. We've got to have a stable ITSM tool that's been around for a while, a really reliable set of data underpinning in that tool. So prioritization correct, none of our resolver teams have changed, nudge articles all updated, ticket categories updated, etc., etc. That's got to be kind of the number one critical thing. And to achieve that level of stability,